the younger demographics are much more, at least as engaged as we were when we were younger in sports. It's just different, and you cannot apply the old recipe to this very different world that we are living in.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back in 2024 for A Guy with a Scarf, a new episode with my friend Sebastien Audoux. Ciao, Sebastien.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year.
So you're in, I imagine, in France, in Paris. Where are you exactly?
Just in a suburb near La Défense, the big economic center.
Okay, cool. So big things happening there later this year. But let's start first with who is Sebastien?
Oh, wow. Former journalist turned digital and OTT expert, I guess. Somebody who started on the editorial side and became much more involved with the tech and business side as my career went along. Obviously, I've been in this business, the sports media business, for 25 or so years. So I've seen a lot of transformations, and I certainly hope we're going to see much more of those transformations going forward, because I still think we have a lot to do to be on the right path, the sports media industry.
I agree. And one of the reasons for this episode that we agreed like 2 days ago, I guess, you were very nice. You did a post last week, I guess, about, prediction for 2024, etc. And you started from something that I said that I wouldn't do prediction, mostly because I'm lazy, or I wanted to use this idea of constant scenario scouting, etc. And you had a different angle, which I really like, which is, okay, I don't want to do prediction because Carlo told me it's not cool, something like that. Then let me do something different. That was, if I interpret it well, what I hope it happens this year, will happen this year. So do you want to start with number one, which is about French football? French football.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, everybody's waiting for a deal to be signed, hopefully in the upcoming weeks. They need to have something by the summer, because obviously it's for the next season. They went through a tender process that was unsuccessful, probably somewhat on purpose, and now they are negotiating with a few players, I guess, for a new deal. And what I read was almost everything was about money. And usually when those negotiations are happening, it's all about, how many millions, billions they're going to get, which I think is important. And that's what I was writing. It's very, very important in the shortest term. I mean, the clubs need that money to operate properly. So there's obviously huge stakes in there. But long term, if you are looking at, again, the overall sports industry outlook, or more closely the football industry outlook, for a league like Ligue 1, who's, as we say, the fifth league, the four biggest league are a bit in their own little world, and even if you want to go dig a bit deeper, the Premier League is probably on its own little world. So what do you want to do when you are a Ligue 1? I mean, France has been, producing elite player for quite some time. Do you really want to say, okay, well, we're the fifth league in the world and it's going to stay as it is? Or do you want to be bold? Do you want to be aggressive? Do you want to be disruptive? Do you want to be, really gunning for those big leagues that are above you? And obviously with the CVC investment, I guess those guys are not really here for letting things happen as they've been happening the past 20 or 30 years. So I think one thing about whatever the player or the players might be in this new deal, whether it's a domestic on one side, international on the other side, or multiple international deals, or one global deal. You never know. I'm much more interested in how are we going to storytell French football? How are we going to, repurpose what Ligue 1 is? How are we going to, showcase Ligue 1 in a different angle? Something that will look different, that will be appealing to maybe younger demographics, maybe new audience, maybe a bigger audience. I think long term, it's really what it's about. I mean, if they want bigger contracts in the future, it will all come down to making a more compelling product, more tailored to what the demands for tomorrow will be. So, to me, something that almost nobody is talking about is how are we going to what will be the editorial treatment of Ligue 1? How will be the international exposure? Will they try something really new to showcase that football worldwide? I mean, it's going to be very interesting.
So basically, you're saying in very short terms, it seems that there is a vision is a bit missing, or the vision is not priority.
No, I'm not saying that vision is missing, but at least the way the press and everybody in the sports business have been talking about those tenders in general. It's all about money. And I do feel even more in the case of Ligue 1 because it's an outsider. It's a challenger league. They need to do something different. And actually, Ben Morel was precisely saying that at Sports Pro Madrid. He was basically saying, we need to do things differently. We need to be a disruptor in the football industry. And I do hope they find a proper partner to achieve that, which I think is the most important going forward for the league.
I agree. Okay. Clear, very clear. Not sure if it's connected, but number 2 is about you want to see another MLS Apple-like deal happening, right?
Yeah. I've mentioned that. Obviously, we heard about Formula One potentially, being in discussion for that. I've read something very interesting around the NBA. They have basically an opt-out clause in every international contract that allows them to basically, get rid of all the international contract if for the domestic renewal that is coming up in the next few months. If somebody is interested in having worldwide rights, they can do that. They can get rid of all the international contract, which is the smartest move ever, if you're asking me, because I think it's what was missing, for example, when the PGA Tour did quite the same deal with Discovery, is that they didn't have that opt-out. So they needed to wait until each broadcasting contract in every international territory was up for renewal, which means, for example, in France, they had to wait until 2024, which was a long time.
Yeah.
And basically,
I was involved in the deal in there, obviously, in my part, the product.
And funny thing is that they had basically got rid of Golf TV before they even had a chance to get the rights in France. So that was a big issue, and the NBA has been very smart in putting that opt-out clause. So we talked a lot about that. I've wrote a lot about the MLS Apple deal. I think it's something really new, really interesting in the approach. I think this is exactly what those big brands are looking for, a truly global approach. And I would be interested in, even if it's not the NBA or F1, I would very much like to see another type of deal like that, because obviously every time you mention that deal, everybody thinks it's very interesting. It brings something new. It will probably, it will probably trigger other deals in that space. But so far, the sample is really small because it's a new deal. It's just started, and it's just one league with one major player like Apple, and Apple is new on the sports side as well. So everything is a bit new, and it's hard to come up with conclusion around that deal only. So I would like to see another deal so we can basically have more purpose to talk about.
Yeah, I also was super excited about the MLS Apple deal with the same mindset. So it's something new we can explore. Obviously, before it's always, it will never work, etc. So, but when you see it happening, and there are maybe three things that I think that I have hope for. One is Apple. It's Apple. Second, it's 10 years. And third is the MLS, meaning if they work together, they have more freedom than traditional, maybe leagues, traditional media companies. And they may create something that is different, finally. And again, we'll see. But I agree. If you have more of the similar kind of deals, there is more exploration and more proof it's a model that can work or not at all.
Yeah, exactly. Which is exactly why I want that to happen again sometime this year.
So, number 3, where I'm a bit less expert. No, I mean, I have less passion for it, but maybe because I didn't capture maybe something that is there, and you will tell me more. Pro golf. It's about pro golf. Live, obviously, PGA Tour, etc. What's your view there?
Yeah, I mean, golf has been in trouble. At least pro golf has been in trouble for a while. But, having been obviously before going to the digital side of the business at Canada, I was the head of golf there. So I followed that quite closely for about a decade. I'm still following that very closely. And there were a lot of issues with golf that were basically, under the mat. Nobody was really looking at that. Two different governing bodies, a PGA Tour very powerful, the European Tour that was struggling, a Ryder Cup that is split in two different organizations, 4 different majors that are run completely differently. There were a lot of issues with pro golf. Nobody was really seeing that, or nobody was really willing or wanting to see that. And then came Live Golf. And then suddenly everybody was, suddenly realizing all the issues that were happening with pro golf. I guess the good that came with Live was exactly that. Okay, now we cannot ignore all the issues. Exactly. And now obviously the PGA Tour is negotiating with the private equity plus the PIF. Whatever the deal is, I do hope that we can, somewhat start fresh. I think one of the things that was missed, because for a long time the PGA Tour was really, first they were operating on a very good business model, being a non-profit in the US. The tournament sponsors were basically acquiring most of the advertising on TV. So for NBC and CBS, that was really a no-brainer to acquire golf, because you could fill in the advertising slots years before any tournament. So they had such a great business models that they were not they did not feel the need to look elsewhere, even though they had more and more international players coming to their tour. Unlike the NBA, for example, they had to do something. And if you look at the revenue, now the revenue for the NBA are huge. I mean, coming from the international side. The PGA Tour didn't really have to do that. The European Tour was somewhat struggling, making a lot of money with the Ryder Cup, but the rest of the business was not as good, because it was harder on the European side, and they were playing in Asia, and Australia had the terrific player and great courses, but had troubles, making things happening. And it was all because nobody was really working together. Everybody was working against each other, and that was the big issue in golf. And I do hope that we can get a true, international world tour where the best courses in the world with the most tradition. For years we struggled in France. We had the oldest continental event, the oldest event in continental Europe. With the French Open. I mean, we can say also a lot about the Italian Open or the Spanish Open. I mean, those national Open mean something, and they need to be treated, as the PGA Tour is calling that now the best tournament, the elevated event. They need to be elevated somehow. And again, maybe before it was hard because it was very, local sponsorship. Now I think we're in a global world where everybody is trying to achieve, world domination. So maybe it will be easier to build a world tour. Maybe again, coming to my second point, you can get new deal where somebody is more interested in having a global deal, a global partnership, or maybe it will be direct to consumer or whatever. I mean, some people in the golf media have been mentioning the PGA Tour might be willing to acquire Golf Channel, for example. We'll see, which will be another way of going direct to consumer. You basically acquire the main media covering your sport. So many things should be happening in the next year, and unlike many of my other points, you're pretty sure something is going to happen in 2024 because they need to come up with the deal with the private equity and with the PIF by April. So we'll at least have some thing to talk about and to think about in the upcoming months. And I do hope that they will be looking at that with an innovative state of mind, I should say.
Yeah. And my time in golf has mostly been with European Tour, and when Mark Lichtenstein was there, and I was able to launch a lot of digital products like in months. I was really like that period. Yeah. Then the fourth point, which I think I know what you mean, but tell me more, is Europe catching up in the entertainment space. Correct? Did I say it correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, even though I'm French, I've worked on American sports my whole career. I started with the NBA and then the American golf. And as much as I would see Europe catching up quickly to how the US is approaching sports, I mean, we're still a bit far away from that. I would love. I mean, it's. I mean, when you see the reaction, for example, on the Super League project, whatever you think about that, I'm not saying it's the perfect project. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it was all about, and that was a bit the case in golf, at least in Europe. It's all about, protecting the tradition and so on. I do get that. I've been watching golf my whole life, so I'm all about the tradition. I've mentioned that regarding golf, but I don't think we should, put tradition against entertainment. Sports is entertainment, and today sports is fighting with a lot of forms of entertainment. It's not like it's football against tennis or golf against cricket. It's sports against original shows on Netflix, for example. It's traditional sports against video games. It's many things happening where you'd only have 24 hours a day to spend doing stuff, and a lot of that you're going to be working and then sleeping, so you don't have much time to do anything else. And there's a lot of competition in that regard, and I think sports should really start acting like it's an entertainment business. How do we make our product more appealing to the consumer? It's in the end, it's that. And sometimes I know that and you probably went through some of those discussions as well, is that it's shocking to some people in the sports industry when you start mentioning, words like product. How about your product? And say, well, you're mentioning our league, our game. Yeah, I mean, it's a product. I mean, it's a product that you've been selling, and your product needs to be better, because otherwise you're going to lose. You're going to lose market shares. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's a business in the end.
To be honest, I was using exactly this point, but not in a polemic way. No, I was explaining that something we were discussing. It's the problem. It's defining what your product is. Now, I don't know. We were talking about what you put in the product, the data, how you use the data in football. Product. I mean, product is a word that is very often misunderstood, but it's kind of crucial. Okay, I'm a product guy, so it's easy to say. I think it's often important because it's kind of the synthesis of a lot of other areas around it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
And I think it should be about entertainment, and it will be the perfect transition to my last point, which is, I mean, how do you gonna get younger demographics into sports?
I have to do 5, and so number 5, which I understand is connected, is, and I like the way you put it, is obviously sport and Gen Z, but you're saying that I let you tell your take on it. Sport and Gen Z, you say.
Yeah, I mean, I've read so many articles. I mean, if you Google Gen Z and sport, you're going to come up with, stories of the apocalypse. Oh, it's gonna be the end of sports. We're all gonna be out of job. Because those younger demographics, they are not interested in sports. They are not fans of anything. They don't want to pay for anything. I actually wrote another post about that after the last one. And I do think it's an easy way out for many sports executive in the industry. Okay, well, there's no solution to that challenge, so we're going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing forever, and then what happens. And I do not believe that. I think in many ways the younger demographics are much more, at least as engaged as we were when we were younger in sports. It's just different, and you cannot apply the old recipe to this very different world that we are living in. And I do think there are a lot of opportunities for the sports properties who, instead of being afraid of Gen Z, will actually, see that as a great challenge and great opportunity for growth, because I think there are a lot of growth to be had with those younger demographics. I mean, they are very much into sports, but they are not at all into sports the way I was into sports 20 years ago. And again, I was writing that in the post. I think, the music industry changed completely in the past 20 years. We've seen the video game industry change completely as well, where we went from, you're buying a game on a cartridge, on a CD or whatever, and then that's it. And now you're going to need to acquire, DLCs and, virtual money, and you're going to buy skins in Fortnite and so on. And you keep buying stuff. So it's a very different business model than the one that we had like 20 years ago. And for some reason, the sports media industry feels that they shouldn't have to change, which I think is wrong.
In theory, there is a lot of announcement, or we're doing this for Gen Z, etc. But I like the way you said it. Sports shouldn't be afraid of Gen Z, because I think in the end, mostly because obviously the leaders in sport and media are not Gen Z. You try to be protective of your generation. I think, even if I try not to, and I have young kids, but still, I mean, there is a kind of need to protect your species. Right?
Yeah, and I do get that, but I think at some point, again, coming back to it's a business, and when you are in a business, you should try and see the opportunities lying with any new challenges. And I think sometimes we miss that in sports because we are so convinced that they are lost for sports, which I don't think is true.
But on the other hand, what is a common factor of, I don't want to say everything you mentioned, but very often, and it was the same in the other transformation that you mentioned about video games, etc., etc. The new revenue streams are less fat than the one we were used to. Yep. And very often they're more direct to consumer and a bit less B2B. And that's a very difficult transition. One, because D2C is super difficult. You're dealing with a lot of people that can be happy or unhappy in question of seconds. So you can really risk. You may risk with a contract, but a contract B2B is something in general solid. With consumers, you risk every moment. So it's a difficult world.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the issue. Is that the system is only basically half broken? Is that you know that the new world will never be as comfortable as the previous one. Exactly. So you really don't want to get into that. But I mean, do you want to wait until you start really falling, where you might hurt yourself, or you need to be proactive and start maybe building a parachute or something? No,
I think you hope that the model resists until you either retire or and your mandate ends. So
I'm glad you said it, because that's terribly true. many people will think, yeah, I mean, okay, those Gen Z, somebody else will have to tackle that. I'll be retired in Hawaii or whatever, and I will be enjoying myself at the beach. So, so not my issue. Well, yeah, okay.
Va bene, so 2024, shall we close on what's going on in your city in 2024 quickly, if you have any thought on that?
Yeah, the fact that I might have trouble getting out for like 2 weeks, considering I'm living like 300 meters from the Paris La Défense Arena, which was one of the main, one of the main arena for the Olympics, where the swimming will be happening. Which will be very cool because it's basically an indoor stadium, and they're going to do swimming in there, which I think is really. I mean, there's a lot of interesting site for the Olympics. Obviously, the opening ceremony. Many people have mentioned that on the Seine River. It's gonna be crazy. Yeah. Many, outdoor events like beach volley. I think beach volley is at La Concorde, or in Champ de Mars. I don't remember. So, but in any case, it will be quite amazing. So, yeah, I mean, it will be very interesting, and obviously, as a basketball fan, very much looking forward to maybe a USA France rematch with Victor Wembanyama against a very good USA team, because they definitely want to get that gold after the past failure in the World Cup. So it will be interesting, and obviously it's. I mean, it's one in a lifetime event, so you want to be able to enjoy that. I was lucky enough to have started my career during the '98 World Cup, and I was basically working. I mean, the young sports channel that I was working for was basically like half a mile from the Stade de France. So it was very interesting because we were in the middle of things, and so I do hope that it's going to be great and everything will run smoothly.
Okay. Va bene. So maybe let's reconnect closer to the Olympics to see how things are progressing. Thank you, Sebastien. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlo.